Good morning. Good morning and welcome, everyone. It's great to be at the home of Laborers Local 66. Let's give them a great round of applause. Thank them for hosting us here today. We're very proud to once again welcome our great Governor Andrew Cuomo back to Long Island. And we also have a number of our other colleagues who are here with us, and I want to welcome them and acknowledge them as well. We have our State Senator, Phil Boyle. Assemblyman Phil Ramos, Deputy Majority Leader, and Assemblyman Michael Fitzpatrick. We're also joined by Town of Babylon Supervisor Rich Schaefer, Babylon Deputy Supervisor Tony Martinez, from the Town of Oyster Bay, our newest supervisor, Joe Saladino. Thank you. Who misses Albany so much. I see his tear. Our former mayor from the village of Hempstead, Mayor Wayne Hall, is here. Oyster Bay Town Clerk James Altadonna. From the Town of Oyster Bay, Councilman Anthony McEnoney and Councilman Lou Imbrodo. I want to also welcome former member of the Assembly, Michelle Schimmel, is here. I want to give a special recognition and thanks to my colleagues in Suffolk County government. First and foremost, our great presiding officer, Dwayne Gregory. We also have our minority leader, Kevin McCaffrey. Legislator Rob Trotta. And I want to give a special acknowledgement to somebody who has been one of the great leaders in our region, I think in our state, as an elected official, as a supervisor, as a judge. He's held many hats. And as a representative of Governor Cuomo here leading recovery efforts after Superstorm Sandy. And now I think I can't think of a person better equipped to help lead the effort that we're talking about here today in government efficiency, and that is John Kamen. John, thank you very much. Since taking office, Governor Cuomo has worked day and night to strengthen New York's economy by improving our business climate with the creation of 21st century jobs and ensuring that our communities are affordable, enjoyable, and sustainable. This year, the governor's budget includes vital funding that continues the state's commitment to building our region stronger and more viable than ever before. Whether it's advancing critical water and transportation infrastructure projects with historic investments, or investments in new economic development projects, Governor Cuomo remains laser-focused on supporting and building communities, not just here on Long Island, but all across this state. And as our local governments face some of the toughest budget challenges of our time, and I can attest to that, the governor has delivered significant mandate relief to reduce costs and promote fiscal responsibility. And at the local level, it is our job to do everything that we can to work with the state, partner with the state, and to do what we can to help make government more efficient and effective. And that's what we're here to talk about today, how we protect the taxpayers that we serve by making sure that government is doing the best that it can in the most efficient, cost-effective way possible. Under the governor's leadership, we've made tremendous progress for men, women, and children all across Long Island and New York State, and I know that we will continue to build a stronger, brighter, and better future for all of us in this region. And I want to thank the governor for being with us here once again on Long Island to talk about a critical issue for all of us moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome the 56th governor of the state of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is my pleasure to be back. I brought the beautiful weather, I want you to know. It is beautiful out there, and it's beautiful to be back in Suffolk. First, to your county executive, who is really one of the best in the state, and the leadership of a county executive is more important than ever before. Give him a big round of applause, County Executive Steve Bellone. To my colleagues from Albany, I don't like when the county executive says Saladino is happy to be out of Albany. I wouldn't say that. Like if I came here and said, oh, they're glad to be out of Suffolk County. That's really not an endearing thing to say to someone. Oh, yeah, they finally moved from Suffolk. Thank God they couldn't wait to get out. I wouldn't do that. I don't. You miss Albany, don't you, Joe? Thank you, Joe. See, you weren't even right. Give Joe Saladino a round of applause. Truth doesn't always count, Joe. To my colleagues from Albany, Phil Boyle, who's worked extraordinarily hard on behalf of the island in general and specifically on the issues of taxation. He's done a great job. Phil, pleasure to be with you. Phil Ramos and I were together 2 weeks ago working on the issue of MS-13. We brought in the state police to be helpful. We brought in additional resources. Recently, they had a breakthrough with more arrests on MS-13. And that involvement really, and the partnership with the state is very important, and that was because of Phil Ramos. He's a really extraordinary leader. Pleasure to be with him. And Assemblyman Fitzpatrick, who is always watching that state budget. I listen to his debate. He goes line by line through my budget. It's not the most pleasant experience, but he's watching your tax dollars. Great to be with him. Give the Assemblyman a round of applause. John Kamen abandoned the state to work for the county, but good to be with you. John, he's an extraordinary public official, so it's good to be with you. And I want to thank the laborers very much for their hospitality in hosting us today. Let's give them a round of applause. The topic we're going to discuss today is vitally important and incredibly difficult. It's that fine line between both. First, we've made a lot of progress. In the past few months, what we've done on the state side, passing the state budget, there's a lot of good work that's done in the state budget. This was probably the most difficult budget that I have done. This was a difficult baby to birth. She came late, but the budget was actually beautiful when it was actually done. It did a lot of good work for us. More education aid than ever in the history of the state of New York. We have the first college affordability program in the United States of America that says to every child, you can go to college. And that is smart, not just because we're giving individuals the opportunity to go, and it's not a question of affordability anymore. Every child has that dream. It's also smart for the state. You know, this state at one time had the most educated workforce in the country. We're now number 11. This country had the most educated workforce on the globe. We're now number 12. You know where businesses are going? Where the educated workforce is. So having our population, the most educated, is good individually. It's also good collectively. We passed a piece of legislation called Raise the Age, which is way overdue, but which says to 16 or 17-year-olds, We're going to understand that you're 16 and 17 years old and they can make a mistake without getting a criminal conviction that's going to eliminate any possibility for the rest of their lives. We have the most aggressive building program in the state's history. And I would bet you we have the most aggressive building program in the nation, where we're rebuilding this state, because the truth is we relied on our forefathers' legacy for too long. Not even our parents' legacy, our grandparents' legacy. When is the last time we built a new highway? When is the last time we built a bridge? When is the last time we built a tunnel? When is the last time we built an airport? When is the last time this nation has built an airport? You know, it's been 20 years since there's a new airport in this country. It's a disgrace. You fly all over the world. You see world-class airports everywhere. And then you fly into New York. And it's like you're flying back in a different generation. Denver was the last airport. So we're rebuilding John F. Kennedy Airport. We're rebuilding LaGuardia Airport. We want to reform MacArthur Airport. We're finally making progress on the Long Island Railroad, which is long overdue. I mean, a more incredibly bizarre situation you couldn't have than the LIRR. Every morning, head of the MTA was a gentleman named Tom Prendergast. He just left. I turn on the TV, delays on the LIRR. What else? I'd call up Tom, what happened now? Well, this happened on the track. It was always on the track. Why did he say the track? Because there's one track, that's why. And if anything happens on the track, everything stops. Well, why don't we have a second track or a third track so when something happens on the one track, we have redundancy? Well, we've been talking about that for 30 years, but we just haven't been able to get there. Why? Well, there's NIMBY, there's opposition, the people who live next to the track don't want a train. You know what? There's always opposition. There is no big thing you can do where 100% of the people are going to say, I agree. And you can't have a situation where a handful of opponents stop all progress. And that's happened on Long Island for too long. I mean, even on the merits, it makes sense, fine. But when it's just a number of opponents who are never going to say yes just because they're in love with the word no or there's some particular interest, we can't let NIMBY be the rule of the land and progress. And I tell you, the politics and the politicians who pander to NIMBY, their day is over. Because you want to pander to the vocal minority, you better hope that there's no vocalization from the majority, otherwise you're going to have a problem. So we're going to get that second track done, and we're going to get that third track done. We're going to redo the Farley Post Office to have a real train terminal rather than enduring the pain of Penn Station. So a lot of good things are going on. And on probably the most important issue in the state, which is the issue of taxes, especially on Long Island, the state is doing everything it can. Our tax rates are down across the board. I know cynicism. Well, I can't believe government reduced taxes. We reduced taxes. It's a question of numbers. It's not words. Everybody in the state of New York pays lower taxes today than the day I was elected, period. That is a fact. We have the lowest corporate tax rate since 1968, lowest manufacturing tax rate since 1917, lowest middle class tax rate since 1947. Well, if the taxes are so low, why don't I feel the taxes are so low? You know why you don't feel the state taxes are so low? Because the state taxes are just a fraction of what you pay. You pay 5 times more in property taxes than state income taxes. 5 times more. That's why you don't feel the reduction in state taxes. See, to tell you the truth, I feel a little badly that nobody says, thank you for reducing my state taxes. Thank you, just you. Thank you. What's your name? Thank you very much, Malik. Thank you, because you're the first person who has thanked me in 6 years for reducing the state taxes. But the reason they don't thank me is because they don't feel it. It's because it's a smaller part of the taxes. The real tax burden in New York is the property tax, individual or business. When people say, I'm leaving New York, I can't take it anymore, they're talking about the property tax. Now, we did do something on property taxes. We passed the property tax cap. Property taxes were going up 7, 8, 9% every year. It was crazy. We passed the property tax cap in Albany when Joe Saladino was there, the good old days. That said local governments can't raise the property taxes more than 2% unless they get a supermajority. That brought increases from 7, 8% down to 2%, like overnight. But a 2% increase is still an increase, right? And with the economy today and the pressure people are feeling today, a 2% increase is not good enough. We actually have to try to reduce the property taxes. Now, how do you do that? We have to go to the local governments and we have to say, we need to find a way to reduce local property taxes. Now, local governments are going to say this. I am doing everything I can do to reduce my budget. And I talk to county executives, mayors, supervisors all across the state. I'm doing everything I can to reduce my budget. There's nothing else I can possibly do, and I resent you for suggesting that I can reduce my budget. I'm sorry that you resent me, but I'm getting used to it. I don't accept the premise that you are running a perfect organization. I am not running a perfect organization. I don't believe there aren't more efficiencies that one can find from government, right? I believe there is always more efficiency that you can find. And this is not our money we're spending. We're spending taxpayers' money, and therefore we owe it to them to make it as efficient and lean as possible. The second point is this. We have to change our basic model and change our basic thinking. Even if you are running the perfect government, you have the perfect town government, there's not an ounce of body fat on your government. You are running the perfect lean organization. There's still a problem. And the problem is, in Suffolk, you have over 400 local governments. Think about that volume, 400 local governments. So even if you want to say, all 400 are perfect, it's never happened before in the nation, but it happened in Suffolk County, because it's Suffolk County. All 400 governments are perfectly efficient. Then I have another question for you. The 400 governments now operate like they're all in a separate business. And they're all separate entities. And they have no connection one to the other. But that's not true. If you had a private company providing a service in Suffolk County, do you really think they would be running 400 separate organizations? No centralization? No shared services? You'd have 400 individual fiefdoms? It would never happen. Well, we are 400 individual fiefdoms. No, you're not. You are all in the basic business of providing community service and public service. Talk to among those 400 and find out how you can do your job more efficiently and saving money. Not everyone has to do everything. Not every government is a country unto itself. You can find efficiencies among yourselves. Do you know, I challenged the county executive and local officials, when was the last time all 400 governments got together and had that conversation? When was the last time you put all 400 governments in the room and said, hey, people, we're all in basically the same business. These property taxes are a killer. They're the highest in the United States of America. Let's figure out how to do shared services, cooperative services. The conversation has never happened. So you can't tell me that a conversation you never had, there's no possibility to find an efficiency. Now, you can say to a county executive, well, why don't you manage the 400? You know why? It's not the county executive's job. County executive does not have that power. It's a misleading title, county executive. Sounds like he runs the 400 governments. Now, I blame him for the 400 governments, just because I can. I sort of enjoy it a little bit, but he has no legal authority over those 400 governments. They run themselves. He runs his county government. But up until the law we're going to sign right now, he's had no power to call those 400 governments together. This law says county executive shall convene all 400 to have a conversation you've never had before, to say to those 400 perfect governments, perfect body fat governments, whatever the perfect body fat percentage is, let's see how we can share services. We're 400 local governments. We have 126 offices in Suffolk County. 126 government offices. Anybody have any vacant space in your government office? Maybe we can consolidate some space and save money. We buy over 4,000 pieces of heavy equipment. 4,000 pieces. Does everybody have to buy these pieces of heavy equipment that you only use a few weeks a year? Can't we find a different way to do that? Can't we find a way to do purchasing together and share our purchasing power? Can't we find a way to do human resources together? Can't we find a way to buy insurance together? There have to be ways to find savings among us once you give up the illusion that we are 400 separate entities. That's what this law says. County Executive Ballone, convene the 400 and have the conversation. Now, I'll tell you what's going to happen in the conversation. Everybody's going to be like this. Everybody's going to be like this. Oh, no, my organization is perfect. Share? You want me to share? With who? With my next-door neighbor, Saladino, Oyster Bay? I don't like Saladino. I never liked Saladino. I was happy when Saladino was in Albany. I'm sorry he's back. I hope he loses his next election, Saladino. I'm not sharing my trucks with Saladino. Plus, Saladino doesn't know how to drive a truck. He'll ruin my truck. I'm fine just the way I am. I'm not going to cooperate with Saladino. Well, how about on the other side? How about Tom on the other side? I hate Tom too. We all hate each other. And I'm not going to do anything. That's what the county executive is going to run into. What do? That process will all be public. There'll be hearings. People will attend. They'll be televised. They'll see the town official saying, I hate Saladino, and he's not driving my truck. and therefore I'm going to buy a new truck for another $200,000 and have my people pay for it just because I don't like Saladino. And he's going to have to say that on TV. And they're going to come up with a plan, and they're going to issue that plan to the public, and every elected official has to put out a letter explaining their position to their constituents as to why they voted for the plan or against the plan. You know the ultimate... You know, the ultimate power in politics is the people. Now, they're not going to do it for me, because I've tried incentives, I've tried sanctions, I've tried everything. But the voters have had enough. They are up to here. And they can't pay any more property taxes. And if they find out, or when they find out, because 400 governments don't want to play nice together, they're paying a higher property tax bill, they are really not going to be happy. And I believe the elected officials are going to get that. And that is the real power that the county executive has going into that meeting, that we're going to have to explain this product to the people. And they cannot accept the proposition that 400 governments in one county, we couldn't figure out a way to save money. It is incredible and implausible. And politicians are smart. No one is going to want to go back to the voters in their town or their village and say, oh yeah, we couldn't figure out any way to save money. If you save just 3%, it's $384 million. That's how much money we're talking about. Now, last point, I promise. This is why this is more important than ever before. Well, we always pay high property taxes. That's just the way it is. We've been on Long Island. I know, I've heard this. We pay property taxes. They're very high, highest in the nation. Highest in the nation. Nassau and Westchester go back and forth. Number 1 or number 2 in the nation, highest property taxes. But you know, there's nothing we can do about it. A, that's false. This is a new approach, and I believe we can have success. B, if we don't do something about it, we're going to have a real problem. Because there is now a federal law that is pending that will be devastating to Long Island. And what the law says is you can no longer deduct your state and local taxes. Now that sounds technical. Right now, when you pay your state and local taxes, but then you get to deduct that amount from your federal taxes, and that reduces your federal income by the amount you pay taxes. And therefore, you're not taxed on that amount federally. Federal government says, we're going to do away with that deduction. And you're now going to be taxed twice. You're actually going to pay your state and local taxes, property taxes, and then you're going to be taxed federally on the amount that you pay. That will increase most people's tax burden between 20 and 40%. All right? The numbers are devastating. It affects about 1 million people on Long Island. It'll cost the Long Islanders $4.3 billion. Average cost for a Long Island family, are you ready? $4,500. $4,500. So, we have to get the property taxes down. Not just because they're too high in and of themselves. If this federal law passes, and by the way, with this Congress, nothing would surprise me. And this is an incredibly popular proposal in Washington. Why? Because it makes Washington money. That's why. It gets them more tax revenue. That's why. And they're always looking for things to get them more revenue because the Congress wants to do a tax cut for the very rich. They have to find the money to do the tax cut for the rich. This is going to be one of the great sources of funding to fund the tax cut to the rich. We're going to fight this like heck. We're going to organize our federal delegation. We're going to organize everyone. I'm going to go to Washington and do whatever I have to do and yell and scream and lay myself on the floor of the Congress. But this is a real possibility. And that's why this issue is more critical than ever before. I want to thank the county executive for stepping up to the plate. This is one of those that, frankly, will be an incredibly difficult exercise when he stands up in front of 400 local officials and says, I want you to do something you've never done before, which is cooperate this way and share services this way and give up control. We like control. Give up control. That's an incredibly difficult conversation. And it's going to take an incredibly strong leader and a courageous leader to do it. And that we have in Steve Bellone, and we're lucky for it. And let's give him a round of applause. And for Mr. Bellone, before I sign the law, I leave you with this one. I spend just about half the year in Albany when the legislature's in session. I don't spend as much time there anymore because Joe's not there and we used to hang out, so it's not the same since Joe left. But in Albany, they have the governor's mansion, they call it. It's not really a mansion, it's a big old house, but they like to call it a mansion, makes them feel better. So it's me alone when I'm in the house because my family's in Westchester, the kids are in school, so it's me alone. And there are stories that this house is haunted. Now, I don't believe in ghosts, and I'm a big, tough Italian guy, but I'll tell you, it gets creepy in that house. And there are a lot of noise that go on, and you are very alone. So I stay up and I do a lot of reading. And I love to read about the history of New York and the past governors of New York. And in my opinion, two of the greats were Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt, putting aside my father, who was the greatest. But FDR and Teddy Roosevelt had the same basic operating philosophy. They said it different ways and they manifested it different ways, but they said the same basic thing, which is you're in government for a limited period of time, and the time goes very quickly. And the trick is to make a marked difference in people's lives while you're in government. That's why you're in government, to make a difference in people's lives, not to talk about it, not to issue a press release saying I'm trying to do it, not to explain why it can't be done, to actually achieve it. And both of them had the same philosophy. They said when they were there, give them the tough problems, not the easy problems. Let somebody else do the easy ones. They were there, they wanted to do the tough ones that had been around for a lot of years, because the tough ones would make a significant difference in people's lives. We make a difference in this property tax problem on Long Island. You will change the trajectory of Long Island. Home values will go up. Young people will stop leaving. Jobs will start returning. It is the single biggest thing that can be done. It is also the single toughest issue to take on. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. Because it's grown incrementally, and nobody had the guts and the courage and the strength to stand up and take it on. And I'm saying the time is now. Remember Teddy Roosevelt, remember FDR, you have a great county executive, local officials, get beyond yourself. It's not an attack on you and your autonomy and your management. The government of the next generation is a collaborative government that works together and gets beyond itself and recognizes that we're all in the same business. Whether you're repairing a road in one town or another, it doesn't matter. It's a truck and personnel and asphalt. And we have to work together if we're going to make Long Island the Long Island we want to make it. I believe we will. Let's sign the bill. You're going to need it.
I use these.